So what we'll be covering today is why we need to shift our team. So I'll talk a little bit about our team and kind of how we operate, and how we assist people in the field, how we assist the grant recipients in the field. And as with anything else, as times change, as necessities change, we have to change, or we have to shift. Or maybe just evolve, right? So it's changing, but it's evolving to meet the needs and requirements of what the field is asking of us. So the other thing is we'll be talking about what is the new way of working. What does that look like? Like what are we offering with this evolution? We're going to be talking about specific tools and resources that will be available and when things will be rolling out. Okay, before we get into that information, I wanted to talk a little bit about this book. Many of you may be familiar with it. It's pretty common, when you're doing professional development, staff development. Who Moved My Chi by Spencer Johnson. I was introduced to it when I worked at El Paso Community College way back in the day, I would say over 10 years ago, but the book came out in 1998. So I looked up to see when did this book come out, and I was like, oh my gosh, has it been that long? So I know many of you have probably been familiar with this, but what they talk about in the book is kind of different personalities and how they adapt and sometimes don't adapt to change. So in the book, where there's 4 characters, there's him, who basically he denies that change is even happening, right? Some of us are that way. Maybe it's because we're comfortable, we like how things are, or maybe it's, a fear of what's to come. So him is someone who isn't very adaptable at times. And then we have Ha, who learns to adapt in time when he sees changing. Changing can lead to something better. So, there are some people who take a little bit of time, but eventually they will move forward, they will take action. Sometimes they just need a little bit more information to be comfortable in taking an action. And then Sniff, he sees change coming, and he prepares for that, and he works towards that. And then you have Scurry. Scurry is a person who just wants to go and run and do things, right? They don't necessarily even need a prompt, knowing something will be different. They just like different. So they go and do those things. So I want you to think about this. Maybe some of these, kind of you relate to them. Are you someone that is very hesitant when it comes to new and different things and new expectations? Are you someone who sees change coming and plans for that, right? So you're working with what is coming. Are you someone who's kind of hesitant, but after a while you realize, hey, I need to get on this boat and go with it. Maybe after you get some more information. And then you have Scurry, who's just on the go all the time. But what's really good is to know kind of what your personality is, what your type is, what you need to embrace things, especially if change is going to come. What kind of support do you need? What would be helpful for you to understand or to be more comfortable with things? I mean, you may not totally accept things 100%, but how can you, in your best way and with your personality, be able to embrace it a little bit better? All right. So why we need to shift. Our team is small and mighty, but we need a greater reach with impact. So for some of you who have worked with us, especially, through maybe some intensive services, or maybe, we've developed a specific training for you, whatever the situation has been, that we are out there and we are providing services, but it's very difficult to be in all places at one time. I mean, we would love to do that. I think everybody on our team is very passionate about service. We're very passionate about helping others and helping others to succeed. It's just really difficult to be in all places at one time. And you probably experienced this too. Some of you have small teams and you wear multiple hats, right? So sometimes it's feels like it's impossible. And every day it's an uphill battle because there's so many things that need to be taken care of. And you only have so many staff members or people on your team. Anticipated changes to the RFA. So we've been talking about this for a while. I mean, we're even going to have an extension year because we know that there are going to be some changes to RFA. We don't know what they are fully. I mean, we can only kind of anticipate, and so we want to try to be as prepared as possible. So that's what we did. When we first realized that some of these things were going to be happening, we adjusted. As a matter of fact, the plan that I'm talking to you about today, that we created for the TA team, or the TA team developed, started way before we even knew that the RFA was going to change. So we were already planning, so a lot of the changes we were going to look, or things that we were developing, were going to be implemented for what we thought was the final year of the grant. But that didn't happen, so we had to shift what we were planning. So I'll mention some of those things as we go along. We're anticipating having more providers. So I'm not saying that there will be more providers, but as we know that when we plan, we should be looking at multiple different situations. We shouldn't just think that things are going to be one way, and so we just plan for that. We always try to look at, okay, what are the different scenarios that might arise, and how do we, prepare for that? Evaluation for impact and current practices. So, we've been kind of doing things, pretty, I wouldn't say pretty much the same, but, pretty consistently for the last 10 years. As program specialists, we all, worked with our programs, and I think we did great work, but as we realized that the need was becoming more and more to assist programs, we really had to look at, well, is how we're doing things getting us the results that we need? Are we able to really support the programs in the field as effectively as we would like to? And quite honestly, the answer was no. So there was another reason to, shift in how we were doing things. Siloed efforts. And some of you may really resonate with this. So you might be on a team where everybody does great work, right? Individually, everybody does great work. But sometimes you find that people are replicating efforts. Sometimes you find, there being so much information, and, instead of just tapping into those resources, because you're not available of them, you're not even aware that some things were created, you're creating something over again. So we really wanted to look at how we were working, what people's strengths were. Also, what had we already created that we could just, tap into and not have to recreate something more material. So just giving you an overview of our team, and I hope you can see this. I have this little transcript thing at the top, so I don't know if it's blocking it. But in our department, I'm not speaking for our agency, Mahalia is our director, and she oversees all of the staff, all of the AEL staff members. But we're kind of broken up into two areas, general areas for the most part. So we have the team that really focuses on the core grants, and that will be the TA team, the program specialists and the grant managers. And then you have the team that focuses on the state leadership initiatives, special projects, those types of things. And then we have additional support with our admin, and also team support with Blanca and Rayanne. Currently, we have a vacant position where Fabiana was. She was the policy lead. And, policy plays a big role in what we do. Policy dictates everything that we put out into the field. So you can only imagine, not having someone in that position, that responsibility, kind of falls on other people on the team, as it sometimes happens for you when you have staff turnover. So focusing a little bit more on the TA team and giving a little bit of explanation of, how we operate and the kind of reach that we have. So again, our team is small but mighty. We have 3 program specialists, and we have 2 grant managers. So with that 5-team member, we oversee 37 core grants. And I still work with two of the grants, the larger Houston, Galveston area, and also the Far West Consortium. They're pretty large grant recipients, but in average, our program specialists work with about 12 to 13 programs each. So we don't just provide technical assistance. We don't just provide training. There's so many other things we're involved in. We do work when it comes to, developing and reviewing RFAs. We do work in being on different types of projects. We do work in just about everything. I mean, everything that comes out of our department, we sometimes have input in it. We're very good at being transparent and sharing so everybody is aware of what's going on. So it's always all hands on deck. It's never, the burden never falls on one person. But again, it's a lot of responsibility, especially as we're trying to serve you as best we can. So our overall goals and what is our guide? So when you're planning, it's really, really important to know what your goals are, right? And sometimes you can have a lot of goals, so you have to narrow it down to what your priorities are, because what happens is, yes, all the goals may be important, but some goals actually need to be accomplished before other goals can be accomplished. And if you're trying to do everything at one time, you're really going to wear yourself thin. So you got to prioritize. You got to really understand, what is our focus? What are we trying to accomplish? What results do we want to see in the end? So one was give the TA team the ability to focus on goals, projects, and partnerships rather than meetings and tasks. So we looked at how much time was being spent on meetings. So, up until last year, we were meeting with programs regularly every month. So each program, so we're looking, there's 37 grant recipients, but I mean, on average, there's, probably about 36, 35 actual grant recipients every month. That's a lot of work. So it's not just meeting. What we were also doing was we're analyzing data. We're getting prepared for the meeting. We're trying to see, what happened from this month to last month. So we don't just come to the table with no information. Our team, sometimes it takes about an hour and a half to prepare for a 1 hour meeting, sometimes more, depending on, the data, depending on, what focus the program has, a lot of different things. So, we all know what it's like to be in meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And especially now that we've gone virtual, it seems like that's all there is, right? So we needed to manage our time better, and we had to be realistic with, okay, is meeting with programs every month as effective as we would like it to be? And two, looking at how can we move from how we are to create what we want to evolve, right? So in order for us to do that, we really had to focus more on partnerships. We really had to focus on knowing our internal departments and external partners so that we could be more familiar with resources and we could be a better asset to the providers. I know that sometimes the providers, they come to us a lot for suggestions, like who's doing this or who's doing that. And it feels really good to be able to refer to you to someone because we're knowledgeable of that resource. Make resources and tools available to programs that will enable them to self-learn and have reoccurring fundamental questions answered before reaching out for TA. So what does this mean? So I've been with the department since 2015, and we get a lot of recurring questions. Sometimes when we see turnover. So when we have new directors come on board or new staff come on board, they're not familiar with, AEL a lot of times. And so we spend a good amount of time with them and trying to onboard them, trying to assist them to get, their legs under them. But after a while, we're like, we're answering all these questions over and over again. We need to do something about that. So that's one thing we really wanted to work on. And we wanted to make sure that you had resources available to you that could probably answer your questions before you had to come to us. Give the AEL department the ability to provide outreach in a way that geographically supports the resources of our team in terms of staff, as well as strengthens and reinforces partnerships internally and externally. So I'll talk about this a little bit more. So the idea is that we can assist in bringing partnership together in areas, right? Looking at regionally, what are our other departments doing at TWC? What is the skills development department doing? What is the foster youth area doing? What is VR doing? A lot of them already have representatives in a regional, set up regionally. So we're looking at, okay, maybe we need to align with that because that would just make it easier to be able to bring people together. The other thing is looking at or continuing to market AEL services. So I think a lot of you know that many people still aren't aware of what AEL has to offer. They sometimes still think of us as the GD service or the GD program. And, you know, for me, it's like, okay, if people aren't knowing who we are, then we need to go to them. We need to start strategically being a part of their events, getting exposure, making our face available so that we're making that effort, right? As opposed to expecting that people are going to come to us all the time and try to, you know, learn about us. Okay. So how are we shifting? So the shift is going to officially start July 1st. We've had some changes already implemented, but we're saying official just so, you know, for the expectation in the field, you know that this is the timeline that we're working on. So the first thing is providing more on-demand TA material, and we're going to go over that in a minute and how that's going to be done. Changing to quarterly meetings. We already shifted to doing this. I know some of the programs are still maybe not doing quarterly meetings, but this is where we're headed for all of the programs, with the exception if you're on a TAP or a CAP. So TAPs and CAPs, technical assistance plans or corrective action plans, will still have monthly meetings. But for everybody else, it'll be a quarterly meeting. Number 3, changing top-down communication to more inclusive communication with multi-pronged impact approach. So what does this mean? This means that we are very aware that when we have been putting out information, it sometimes stays at the administrative level. It sometimes stays with the directors, or sometimes the directors do make an effort to put it out to the field, but it may not be being utilized. It may not be fully understood. And, you know, we wanted to really look like, well, how can we help with that, right? How can we change it so that it's not just us pushing out information, it's us actually helping to bring the information from the bottom to the top. Number 4, aligning resources internally and how we do things with our partners, external and internal. We can't do things alone. If we want to be successful, if we want to see the students succeed, they need wraparound services. They need additional assistance. Just being in the classroom and motivating them is great, but we all know that a good number of our students come to us needing additional assistance. So again, for our team to best serve you, we really have to be aware of what's available. We have to have partnerships with, you know, at the state level so that we can come together and be able to maybe do initiatives together, maybe do better partnerships together, maybe just have regional meetings together, just so people could be more aware, understand what's available, and, you know, tapping into those things. All right, so the rollout phase, with planning, again, it's not doing everything at one time. You know, you have to manage things in a way where they can be accomplished, right? And that's taking into account of what are your team members capable of, what, you know, what is on their plate already, what also, you know, as a department overall are we working on. So we're constantly having to check in and see, okay, what is everybody doing? You know, can we realistically take on more? And we try to be very conscientious of not overloading ourselves, because what happens is when you overload yourself is you get burnout, and you get people leaving, you get, you know, I'm just being very transparent here, or you have people, you know, shutting down. They shut down and their work isn't what it could be. Not that they don't want to perform well, they're just overwhelmed, right? So we have to be conscientious of what is going on with everybody through the process. So the first phase is what, I'm going to talk a lot about today. The AEL fundamentals for requirement for new directors is one thing. With that, what will happen, and I'm going to give more detail on the different slides, but just a heads up, we do the new director training. We've tried doing it many different ways. We change it a lot because we see that, okay, maybe the way we did it that time could be improved on and we could do it better this way, or we don't even know if it's going to have a better result. But we definitely feel like, if we keep doing the thing the same way, it's not going to give us, a better result. So we have to do something different. So here, what we want to see happen for the new director training, and I know a lot of you jump back in the new director training. Some of you have been directors for many years and you still participate in the new director training. And we appreciate that. But we want you to know, for all new directors, we will be requiring that AEL fundamentals is reviewed before we get into a room or a webinar with you, because the idea is that we want you to have a foundation of AEL before we have the conversation with you. Because a lot of times before, with the new director training, we try to introduce everything at one time and we just hope things would stick, right? That's not the best way to learn. We know that even for students in our classrooms. So there will be a change to that. Other things that we'll be looking at is the new director onboarding. Again, that'll be a little bit different. We have updated the detailed project plan. The template will be available July 1st. And then the PD plan, there was a webinar for this, I believe it was last week. If you missed it, there's some information at the end of this presentation where you can go back and access it. Desk aids, there will be some desk aids, AEL IET programs. Many of you have been asking every year, at least from what I can remember, I'm sure the other program specialists can attest to this. What is everybody doing in terms of training, and who's doing what training? So we do have a list available. It has been available, but it will be updated. We try to do that annually now, so that you can go there and you can see who is working on what, and it just makes it easier for you to connect with those programs. Recommended trainings for required positions. So those who work directly with the grant, that there are required positions. I believe there's 5 or 7. The director, the career navigator, the lead instructor, all of that required positions. What was developed, I think you'll be very happy with, and we're just looking for a place to post it, but it'll show you where to find or what types of trainings would be recommended specifically for those positions. And if we don't have a lot right now, we definitely want to work on those areas to provide more for you. Quarterly meetings with providers. So I mentioned that. Frequently asked questions, and then also events calendar. So all of this we want for you July 1st. But by July 1st, some of this is already provided to you, but this is part of what our plan and what we have developed for you. The second phase is us going back into operations. So the first part were a lot of different little projects, and then it's going into operations. So starting in September through June, we will have, we'll hope to have a technical assistance schedule, be better at providing things in advance so that you can jump in when you're aware of them. You can put them on your calendar. It's not like the week before, oh, hey, we're putting out this TA. We hope you can join us. We want to be better at having at least an annual schedule for TA. Quarterly meetings with providers, we'll continue to do that. Timely TA as needed. Site visits, we'll be doing CAPS and TAPs, statewide TA, position content specific support. So this is something we wanted to start this year. We just got snowballed with all these other things. We realized that the QAPA, and I think the previous year we did a little bit better at providing sessions for the quality assurance and program accountability positions, because we know that you need the support. So we wanted to try to do a regular meeting, even if it was a quarterly meeting, and also for people that were involved in teams. So anybody that has to do with data entry or, setting up classes, anybody that's involved in teams, we wanted to have more support for you. So we're looking at hopefully rolling that out because we were able to do that this year, hopefully next year. Okay. So going back to our goals, so the first goal was give the TA team the ability to focus on goals, projects, and partnerships rather than meetings and tasks. So what fell under that? The quarterly meetings, so freeing up time for the staff to do those things. Review of deliverables before meetings. So this is really important. Since we're only meeting with you quarterly, it's really important that we review all of the documents that you submit. So the deliverables were always required, but they weren't necessarily reviewed prior to meetings. And so we've put that into place that all deliverables will be reviewed before we sit down and have a conversation with you. Also focusing on strengthening internal and external partnerships and then co-collaboration. So all of this falls into helping us with that first goal. So if you're ever wondering what we review before we meet with you, there's a lot of information. We want to make sure as best we can to assist you with what your specific needs are. So that requires us to be very familiar with your program as much as we can be from where we're at physically. I know that if we were closer to you or if we were on site, we definitely would be more invested because we feel like the more we understand what your needs are, the better that we can assist you. So these are all of the things that we look at. So we have the detailed project plan, the quarterly narratives, the monitoring reports, sub-recipient monitoring reports, I3 reports, Teams, Tableau, SEDAR data, career pathway survey results, monthly report cards, and data trend spreadsheets. So with the exception of a couple of these are things you submit to us generally, like the monthly report cards we give to you, the data trend spreadsheets, that's something we keep internally to see how programs are doing in the different areas. But we review a lot of information before we meet with you. So I hope that, it gives you a little bit of confidence that the program specialists are really working hard to assist you with what your needs are. But what also helps us is when you reach out to us and you ask questions. We have some programs that don't reach out as regularly. We have some programs that are very good at communicating, but we have some programs that don't ask any questions. And it's very, very hard for us to understand, what your needs are if you're not reaching out to us. I want you all to look at this image and I want you to try to find the marshmallow.
So on the bottom where this orange bow is,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go to the top, like above her.
Yes.
And then it's right there.
Yes. Yes. How did you find that marshmallow? Tell us a little bit about how you found that marshmallow.
I was like scanning like rows of whatever this animal is, seals or something. I was just kind of just scanning and making like a grid along it. And it's going left to right until I found it.
Great job. Yeah, I'm sure some of you were still trying to find the marshmallow when Kimberly raised her hand. Can you see my cursor? Yes. Okay. Yes. So Kimberly correctly identified where the marshmallow is. So the point of this exercise is, have you all ever needed to find something and you can't find it? It's there because maybe someone told you it was there, or you vaguely remember seeing it, but there's this frustration, right? Some of us get frustrated, especially when we're in a time constraint. I gotta find that document. Where was that policy, right? So we really were thinking about this when we were making these shifts. We were really thinking about how can we make things more accessible? How can we make it easier for people to find stuff? The tools and resources I'm going to share with you next, I hope that you like them. I hope that they will help you. And it has been, an answer to some of, what you have been asking for. At least, we hope that we've been hearing what your needs are. Okay, so the next goal for us was to make resources and tools available to programs that will enable them to self-learn and have reoccurring fundamental questions answered before reaching out to TA. So on the right side, we already have resources available. So it comes back to, again, where in that document is that specific policy? And that's when you'll usually reach out to us. I don't know where that's at, or where does it say this, that we have to do that? We get a lot of those questions. But I just want to remind you that we already have these documents available. We're trying to update them regularly, especially like, the performance guide, the testing guide. The AEL guide is getting a complete overhaul because the last time it was put out was in 2017. And then we have the AEL letters. So I try to share this every time I present, so people will go there and at least look at them, become familiar with them, know where to find them. I put the QR codes on there. They'll be easy to, click on or scan and go to that information. What's on the left side are the new things that we're putting out for you. So I had mentioned some of this before, and I'm going to go over them individually in this next couple of slides. So the frequently asked questions. Man, I think Linda's been working on this. Linda Ross, one of our program specialists, originally started with Maria. So when Maria started, I think Maria started 2 or 3 years ago, one of her first assignments was to field all the questions coming in. So to help her learn, more about AEL as questions came in, her task was to try to find that information and answer that question. If she couldn't, then she would, tap into one of us and say, hey, can you help me with this? So we've been collecting these questions for some time. We're just trying to find the best way to make them available to you that is user-friendly. Like, again, you don't want to, half the reason something is not used is because it's not user-friendly. You can't find what you need quickly. So you say, forget it, So we're still working on that. We have a lot of different categories that the questions fall into. So again, several years of questions for different topics. But also know that a lot of the questions are very specific to a program. So when we put this out, the question has been modified to apply to a general audience. So what does that mean? That means there's not going to be any specific naming of any programs. We're going to want to make sure that the question and the answer is something that can be applicable for most people in the field. And it just makes it a little bit easier. Yes, Todd, you recognize a lot of those. I'm sure you've asked this quite a few. AEL fundamentals. So again, these are already available to you in the PD portal. What's on the left? So we have 5 AEL fundamentals that are in the PD portal that you can review. We're adding 2 more. We're adding the career pathways and then also teams. So these are not in-depth, in-the-weed webinars. These are very basic information to get your feet wet before you take the deep dive and get crazy with all the information. So you'd be able to go to something like this, get a kind of easy, quick review of what this information is. We try not to make them too long, and they're great for new staff. So if you don't already have a orientation or onboarding in place or a plan for turnover, this would be great to implement. It kind of cuts your work out in some ways because they get the information in advance and then you can review stuff with them or get in more detail with things with them. But for us, what we'd like to use them for is whenever we're working with a new director, we'd like them to review this first and then meet with us so that we can either touch on these individual areas. We're not quite sure how we're going to set it up this time exactly, but we do know we want this to be a requirement. So you have the QR code. This takes you directly to the PD portal, so you'd have to look up these trainings, but the new editions aren't available yet. They will be available soon. The goal is by July 1st. And then also put in the link in case you're not doing a scan thing with your phone. The AEL IAT programs in Texas. So this is something, as Anne is getting the surveys in, she takes a record of who is doing what in the field. So this is already available on the TCAL website. I believe it's been available for about a year now. Anne will be updating it regularly. Wherever she's working with will be updating it regularly. So you can go here, you can look for the workforce training, see what you're interested in, see if people are doing it, and then you can see who is offering it. And then you would be able to reach out to them directly. Because I know sometimes you reach out to us and you have questions, but we know that we're not doing the work in the field. The best person to probably speak with, in terms of like, what are issues that came up with? Are there anything that I should be aware of before I jump into doing this training? Because sometimes we learn as we go, right? And it impacts us being able to provide services if something we weren't prepared for shows up, right? So if you can maybe have a conversation in advance with another program that has already had the experience of having a training that you're interested in doing, that just makes the job a little bit easier. So that's that information there. Again, you can scan that code, or you can go to the website, and this is where you'll find the information. And then we have the recommended training for required positions. So again, there's required positions in the grant. And I want to give credit to Maria for doing this. She took this on as her Leadership Excellence Academy project that she did with TCAL. And she said, we really need to know what can be available for PD for these positions. I know there's a lot of emphasis for instructors sometimes, but, being able to look at, something as simple as this, what's the position? And then, she gives a little bit of detail on some of the responsibilities. Your positions in the field might have more responsibilities, maybe not exactly the same responsibilities, but, the state, again, we don't try to, we don't try to necessarily, have say in what your local flexibility is. So how you develop things, or, what, depending on what your needs are, there needs to be some room for adjustment. But if you click on the link where the name of the required position is, click on that and the list of PD will be shown. So that's really great. There might be some PD you weren't even familiar with that you would be interested in taking. I know some of you who have been out there in the field for a while, you're questioning, well, I felt like I've taken everything I can possibly take. I would suggest going here, checking it out, see if there's something that might be useful to you, and give us your feedback. We'd really appreciate it. Or if there's something in the PD portal that you're aware of that you think would be great for one of these positions, we'd love to hear that too. Todd's exhausted. I know. I'm sorry, Todd. Desk aids. So desk aids, there have been things people have asked us for. We have to be very careful when we put things out, because unless it's like an official AEL letter or it's policy or something that has been run through our contracts department, our legal team, we want to be very careful what we want to put out, right? And we want to help you though, because you ask us for things, we're like, oh, that would be easy. We could just put together this sheet and share it to the field. But we run into the issue sometimes of people taking that for, like, oh, that's policy. That's what TWC said. So, maybe we need to mark this with like, this is, not vetted information, this is just to provide assistance or something. But a couple of things. So this is one of the things I really like. Maria has been really working hard on this too. The TWC AEL welcome. So basically, when you're a new person, what are the things that you should be aware of? Getting Teams access, maybe access to the PD portal. How do I do that? And just having them on a couple of easy to access sheets. Adult education acronyms. Many of you are already familiar with that. I know we need to revamp that pretty regularly because we add things sometimes. The AEL reports. So the AEL reports, we're still working on that because you get the I3 reports. This is mostly for your directors and administrators. And sometimes not necessarily knowing, well, what are these reports for? We do have like a 1 page on the front that kind of give you some basic information, but we want to give you some better detailed information for those reports. Job readiness checklist is a quick checklist to see, are your students getting these things for them to be prepared for the workforce? IET programs, I just shared that with you. Oh no, this is something different. IET program, typical credentials and MSGs. This is another thing people have been asking us for. if I'm going to do this training, what type of MSG should I be looking at doing, or what type of credentials should this person be getting? So we are putting together something for you that can give you a little bit of, kind of insight in what to lean towards possibly. You may decide on doing something different, and that's okay. But I think people feel more comfortable if they have some kind of example so that they can move forward more confidently. Measurable skills skills gain overview chart. This has already been available, but we want to make sure that it's in one area where everybody can find the desk aids. Because again, we want to make this easier for you to find. We don't need you going to different pages, right? Or different sites. We need to go to one place and, oh, I can find the desk aids here. So we're also looking to improve that. Required participant file documentation. This is another thing that's really important. People have asked for it. And it's very, very important when it comes to monitoring that what's that's required to be in a participant's file. So we will have a basic checklist with that information for you. All right, events calendar. This has been available this past year. Linda Ross put this together. We had mentioned that this would be a great idea, and she just jumped on it and did it. So thank you, Linda, for doing this, because we've been hearing from the field like, hey, it would be really great to know when these conferences are happening so we could better prepare, spend our PD and, get requests from our administrators and all that to attend. So we have this calendar. It probably doesn't have everything that could be available. We thought of the main events, what would be beneficial, and we tried to expand on it as we're getting aware of more information and events. So if you know of anything, again, please submit it to us and say, hey, I didn't see that on your calendar. I think maybe it would be good to be on there. A lot of people attend this. So it had been shared in our weekly email to the directors for the programs. But for those of you who didn't get this information, we'd love for you to also be able to see it. So we're getting to the end here. What time is it? 11:15. So we have 15 minutes. So a couple of quick reminders where to find the deliverables. Deliverables required to turn in for the grant. But previously when they were on the TCall website, they were in a different location, and they recently have been moved. I said recently, maybe within the last couple of months. So I want you to know of the new place to find them, because it's really important. I know Kara's really great at sending out notifications, but some of you who like to plan in advance, it's good to see that document and get the information on your calendar, be prepared in advance. So that's the new location. The two previous webinars that were recently put out that would be good to review, if you haven't, that may be beneficial to you, is the end of the year checklist, because that's coming up. You know that everything has to be closed out by July 15th. That was done through a webinar on April 20th, and it's available at this link. So if you go to this webinars link, you'll find it there. I think you have to scroll down quite some ways down the page, but it's there under program management. And then the detailed project plan and PD plan rollout, an explanation of that is also provided. If you missed that webinar, some useful information there also. So the last part of the goal is to give the AEL department the ability to provide outreach in a way that geographically supports the resources of our team in terms of, I can't read that. Well, that third goal. I have this thing over the top, but basically we want to strengthen partnerships internally and externally. We want to be better at marketing AEL. We are working on having an official logo for AEL for Texas. So we want that. We get a lot of, when we're attending conferences, can I have a pamphlet? We don't have a pamphlet. So we're going to work on all that material. We want to have that available. Statewide TA, again, we're working away from not having to, we just can't. It's very difficult whenever a program reaches out to us and says, we just got all these new staff hired. Can you do an MSG training for us? Or can you, run out to us and provide an overview of AEL because we have a new director now? it's something we did in the past and we really enjoy doing it. It's just very, very difficult with the staff that we have. So we're looking at doing more statewide TA that's recorded and that can be available for staff when they need it. Also continued efforts for collaboration with partnerships, because that doesn't end. A partnership and a relationship takes a lot of work. You don't shake hands one day and expect that relationship to continue. You got to continue to meet with that individual and check in and kind of, you know, see how things are going. But for the 24-25, so not this program year, but the new program year, when the new grant starts, we're going to be doing regional assignments. So we were going to do that this year, but we just had too much happening and we just thought it would be too much change or, you know, shifting for people in the field also, you know, because when you get a new program specialist, you also have to adjust, and then also, you know, learning a different way of meeting together regionally as opposed to always just at your site. So regional assignments, regional meetings, the AEL marketing materials, and then also updating the TWC AEL website, because it definitely needs to be updated.